What's up, guys? This is Manoj Bhutani. I welcome you all on behalf of the Edupedia world. It's been a lovely morning today. I'm sure that you guys are enjoying your life to the fullest, like as usual. Perfect, guys. Sometimes I get feel and a bit jealous and envying you. You guys are enjoying by reading and having that kind of pleasure and being around books all the time. Okay, not a problem. Still my students, huh? So, perfect, guys, not a problem. So, this is the second video presentation in which I'll be discussing with you some of the relevant aspect of special audits. In our last presentation, I did discuss to you about the risk-based audit and the energy audit. So, I'm 100% sure that by now you must have covered it completely on your own as well, and you must have revised the same. Don't forget about revision. It's the most crucial thing in order to make you sail through your CA final examination. Like always, as I say. So, perfect, guys. Fasten up your seatbelts. We are about to take off with the first topic of this particular presentation, and that will be what is the environmental audit. So, in our last presentation, I did taught you something about energy audit. In this particular presentation, I'll mark the beginning and inception with the help of environmental audit. This particular question was asked numerous times in the past CA final examinations of November 2002, November 2003, and finally November 2012. So, you can say one of the quite like hot favorite kind of a question. Usually, examination pattern is being set in such a manner wherein this question is going to get included in it, most likely. So, this is one such question. So, what does environmental audit actually mean? So, what is it? What do you think, guys? As the name suggests, simply before reading into it, so before going into it, let's understand what does environmental audit actually mean. So, an audit of environment will simply be the environmental audit. Simple. If you are going to audit something relating to environment in which you are living presently, so that is something about environmental audit. Nowadays, pollution is getting like increasing like anything in this city. I'm talking about New Delhi. Okay, I'm not too sure about my viewers and my students in different states and different cities, but I am presently residing in New Delhi. So here pollution is like anything. Okay, it's increasing day in, day out. So if I'll talk about some kind of audit which would have been done, like as far as the environmental audit is being concerned, so about pollution audit simply. So if would have been like done 10 years before, the kind of reading would have been like X. Now if you'll do it, definitely it's going to be like almost 50 times of that X now. Why? Because the pollution has increased like anything in this particular city. So that's something about environmental audit. So it is basically a critical kind of analysis of the policies, principles, systems, procedures, practices and performances that relate to the environment. So that is something about it. It is basically the kind of management tool comprising a systematic, documented, periodic and objective evaluation of performance of the environmental organization, management or equipment to safeguard the environment by facilitating the management control of environmental process and assessing the compliance with company policy and regulatory requirements. So it is basically the kind of that management which is going to which usually comprise of systematic and documented kind of evaluation of performance of any of the environmental organization, management, equipment in order to safeguard the environment by facilitating the management control of our environmental process and assessing that particular compliance, whether compliance relating to the same is being done in a timely manner or not with the company's policy and regulatory requirements. So this was all about environmental audit, and as the name suggests, it's pretty much common to understand that this will be something related to the environment. So that's how it is going to be done. Let's move to the objectives. So what are the objectives of any of the environmental audit? So first of all, to evaluate the efficacy of utilization of the resources, such like men, machine and materials. So how your organization is utilizing the men, that means the people, that is the human force, labor, Next will be the machine. So how are you utilizing the machines? Are you utilization in the best possible manner or not? And finally, the materials. So there are 3M which are involved in any of the business: men, machine, and material. So how are you using the materials? Are you like using the same effectively as far as the utilization of resources are concerned? So that is something which is required to be done as an objective of environmental audit. Next is to identify the areas of environmental risk and liability and weaknesses of management system and problems in compliance of the directives of regulatory agencies. So you need to identify all those areas of environmental risk and liabilities and the problems which can arise in compliance with those directives of regulatory agencies. So that is again a kind of objective of environmental audit. And finally, to control the generation of pollutants and waste. Many of the cities, as far as UP is also concerned, Uttar Pradesh, the kind of factories which are situated in Uttar Pradesh are like heavily releasing the pollutants and waste into the air. So you have heard about this news that all the factories which were situated near the Taj Mahal, which is one of the finest seven out of that 7 wonders of the world. So all those factories which were near that particular premise, so all those factories were shut. Why? Because these were the factories which were releasing and generating many of the pollutants which are going to affect the beauty of the Taj. So we need to understand this thing very cautiously, that we need to respect the kind of monuments which were being made with so much love, with so much efforts, and with so much labor. Man force was involved in it. So all these things need to be controlled in order to control the generation of pollutants and waste. So that is again an objective of environmental audit. So you need to evaluate the efficacy of utilization of resources. You need to identify the areas of environmental risk and liabilities and weaknesses in the management system. And finally, you need to have that kind of control on the generation of pollutants and waste. So that is all about the objectives of environmental audit. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with relation to the meaning as well as the objectives. Perfect, guys. Let's move to the next topic. Again, this question is again a kind of good question, and that was asked twice in CA final examination for November 2006 and November 2008. What are the different aspects which need to be considered in a particular environmental audit? What are those aspects? Or I should say, you need to enumerate the main areas which are required to be covered by any of the auditor in case of environmental audit of a industry unit. So what are the aspects which are need to be covered in order to ensure that you do your environmental audit properly? First, that will be the layout and design. So the factory layout should be designed to allow the adequate provisions of installation of pollution control devices, upgradation of pollution control measures, and finally meeting those statutory and regulatory requirements. So any of the factory you set up, okay, the layout of that particular factory should be such that it provides you adequate provision for installing the pollution control devices. Let's suppose you tomorrow set up any of the industry. You completely set up all the machines, but you forgot, and there is no such space which is with which you will be able to like install any of the pollution control devices over there. So will it be any worth? No, guys, absolutely not. You are actually not taking care of the environmental responsibility. That is the first and the foremost thing which needs to be done. So you need to have those adequate provision for installing all those pollution control devices, first of all. Next, you need to upgrade your pollution control measures while you provide any of the layout for your factory. And then next, you need to meet the kind of statutory and regulatory requirements. Maybe it has been like provided that in a particular state there is some kind of guideline that has to be like followed up by all the factories which are releasing such waste or such pollutant in the air. So that has to be taken care of in that particular case. So you need to design that layout accordingly. And the auditor should identify the areas which require your attention but not attended to by the industry. So you need to make and bring the same to the kind perusal of the management. Next, you as an auditor should identify the future requirements of the environmental measures required in tune with the proposed future course of working plan again. So that is something on your design part. So number one, that is layout and design. Number two, that is resource management. So resource management basically, guys, will include air, water, land, energy, raw material, human resources, all of them. So you need to use basically all these resources which are interlinked with each other, and you need to use them in the best possible manner in order to ensure that harmony is being maintained, which results in optimum output while keeping in mind the minimum waste gets come out of it. So that is something which needs to be done. Resource management, and keep that wastage of resources at the minimum is a must for industrial health and environmental well-being. So that is something which needs to be done. Number 3 will be the pollution control system. So an effective system of pollution control should be in existence. The auditor should see whether all required pollution control measures are available or are they in vogue something. So you need to understand they should exist and they should be in a very good kind of appropriate manner. So that shouldn't be in vogue. Next, they need to ascertain the efficacy of the pollution control measure and systems. So again, that is the second thing which needs to be done as far as auditor's responsibility is being concerned. Next will be you need to examine the need for further measures considering the type of industry and the nature of working. So what are the needs of some further measures? Do we need some kind of additional things that needs to be done in that particular factory or premises? So that needs to be taken care of as far as the pollution control system is concerned. So whether your pollution control measures are available, existence, and are of something vogue, or you need to ascertain the efficacy of the utilization of those pollution control measures, and then you need to ascertain and examine the need for further measures which can be done in order to considering the type of industry that the auditee is working with and the nature of their working. So this is what you as an auditor can provide them with some kind of relevant aspect with relation to pollution control system. Next will be the safety arrangements. So emergency plans should be reviewed periodically. What are the different kind of emergency plans into place? So are they having appropriate kind of exits in case some mishappening or some kind of natural calamity that occurs over there? So is there some kind of exit routes which are available over there? Fire extinguishers are in place or not? So all these things of like safety first comes. Okay, so that needs to be done. All those other required areas for safety amenities should be kept ready, and particularly for industries like gas, chemical, these are the things which needs to be done. Next will be the staff. Staff equipped with requisite awareness and alertness should be engaged to meet the contingency. Have you seen in many of the corporates is being like provided that they usually appoint or like provide some kind of duty to a few of the person will like natural calamity manager or something like a risk management manager, or there are some of the different names which are being provided to all these person in some different organizations. So their major objective is basically they are the staff which have been equipped with some kind of awareness and alertness that what should be done if in case emergency comes in. So these are the persons who are going to be the first one to help you up. So you need to have that kind of staff equipped with requisite awareness and alertness that should be engaged to meet the contingency. And there should be the periodic emergency drill should always be done with some kind of safety drill operations. So this is something which needs to be done. So when in my past experience, I've seen that wherein I was working with EY, so that I actually had this kind of an opportunity because my company was basically taking care of this thing very good in these aspects. So the safety kind of arrangements and these drills were pretty much common in those areas. So we used to have that drill like twice a month, like not twice a month, sorry. So once in 2 months. So it used to happen over there. So safety arrangements were done in a very good manner. So that is something as a first and foremost thing which needs to be done as an aspect of environmental audit. So layout and design, resource management, pollution control system, and safety arrangements. Next comes in the medical facilities. So adequate medical facilities should be maintained for meeting the regular healthcare and first aid requirements. If something happens, so you need to provide them the medical facilities. Next will be the hygiene. So a proper system should be established to eliminate the industrial unhygienic waste, including basically the office e-waste as well. So hygiene should be maintained in each and every circumstances. Occupational health. So by occupational health, I simply mean that safeguard should be done against occupational health hazards, and that should be made available for all the workers based on the nature of the working atmosphere. Appropriate weightage should be given to the diseases that are prone to that particular type of. So if in case your company is basically working into some of the things which basically involve the usage of water more and more. So the disease like diarrhea or these kind of things which are water related to waterborne diseases. So you need to be aware of these things, that all the hygiene and the occupational particular kind of health needs to be kept in mind while you provide the employment to any of your worker. So occupational health is again a kind of concern with the kind of companies which provide some kind of occupation in some specific areas, some specific types with which you can do it. So you need to be aware of that thing. So occupational health is another area. Next will be the reporting system. So information and reporting system should be strengthened first of all, keeping in view that the authority and the responsibility at each managerial level is actually met. So reporting system should be strengthened up. Next, periodic compliance reports should be put to board for all the statutory environmental laws along with preventive and precautionary measures at regular intervals. So that is about the reporting system that needs to be done. Next will be the environmental impact assessment, EIA. So the effect of the factory's activities on the existing environmental condition is basically covered in this EIA report. And there will be deviations between the EIA factors estimated at the time of commencement of the factory and the actual happenings when the factory starts working. So you need to evaluate those deviations and provide for the same in your EIA report. And if in case it is observed that the degradation caused to the environment through the factory's activities is higher than what was predicted, then the EIA report should also contain the mitigatory measures and recommendations therefore. So that has to be taken care of. So this is a particular aspect which needs to be covered in your report as far as this particular environmental audit is concerned. Next will be the update. So who all are the persons who will be like directly working with the system should be made aware of the latest statutory and regulatory requirements. They should be trained, instructed on regular basis to avoid making the board or owner vulnerable to prosecution and penalty. So update should be provided guys all the time. That is an important thing. Lastly, the society welfare. So generally the industry transforms the agrarian environment into industrial environment. We usually have seen that all the way there are just villages and farms and what do industries usually do? They just convert that agricultural environment into the industrial one. And this aspect should be considered to strike a balance between industrial development and society's welfare. So both the things are required. You need to have industries and you need to have farms as well, guys. So we just can't completely swap the farms or this environmental agrarian environment with into this industrial one. So it has to be taken care of. So society welfare is extremely important. So this is all about the aspects which you require to be considered in any kind of environmental audit. Layout and design first of all, resource management, pollution control system, safety arrangements, medical facilities, hygiene, occupational health, reporting system, environmental impact assessment, update, and finally concluding with society welfare. I hope each and every kind of example that I made you aware in this presentation and this particular aspect was clear enough for you. Perfect guys, with that let's move to our next topic, and that will be about environmental reporting. So what's the meaning of environmental reporting? First of all, so if I'm basically auditing something on the environment, then finally I'm reporting onto it something. So that is about environmental reporting. It is the disclosure made by an entity about its environmentally related data like environmental risks, impacts, policies, strategies, targets, cost, performance, environmental performance. So all these things in which the company is basically like disclosing some of the about environmentally related data. So this is about environmental reporting. Simple. So we are just reporting some of the relevant aspect in this environmental report. So that's all about it. It is about the disclosure which is made by an entity about the environmentally related data like environmental risks, environmental aspects, policies, strategies, targets, cost, liabilities, or environmental performance. So that is one aspect. Next, Such disclosures should be made to those who are interested in such information to enrich their relationship with the reporting entity. That has to be taken care of. These reports are provided along with number 1, environmental report will be included with annual report and accounts package. That is number 1. Second, standalone corporate environmental performance report. Usually we call it in our sense as CER. Third, site-centered environmental statement. And fourth, other media like staff, newsletter, some kind of video, CD, website. So these reports are likely to be like provided along with all these: annual report, annual accounts package, standalone CER, site-centered environmental statement, and other media. So that's about the environmental reporting. Now, what are the approaches to environmental reporting? Number 1, compliance-based reporting. So, reporting the level of compliance with external regulations and consent limits is a very common feature of any of the environmental reports of heavily regulated utilities and industries. Example, water, electricity. So, you need to have that kind of compliance-based reporting, wherein the reporting will be done on the level of compliance with external regulations and the kind of limits that they consent you as a common feature over there. So that is number 1, compliance based reporting. Number 2 will be the impact based performance reporting. So private sector companies that are not subject to specific consent requirements identify their key environment impacts and base their reporting around those target setting and performance achieving those targets. So that might be a possibility that if a company is working in some private setup, okay, so there might be a cases wherein some specific consent requirements might not have been like provided to them, or they are not subject to those requirements. So they need to identify their own key environment requirements and base their reporting around those target setting or performance achieving those targets. So that should be done. So what is the impact based performance? That is one. Compliance will be for the one which is being like subject to some specific consent requirements. Impact based will be for the one which are not subject to, but they need to analyze and identify their key environment impacts, and accordingly they can fix up their reporting. Next will be the eco balance approach. So some companies usually construct a formal eco balance from which they are going to derive the performance indicators. So they have this kind of setup in their own reporting. And the lastly will be the environmental burden approach. So chemical industry like based out in United Kingdom or US basically has developed this kind of externally focused reporting approach which quantifies the company's impact on like 8 to 9 kind of quality measures. So that is something on the basis of this approach which was developed in UK and US. So that is about environmental burden approach. So you can even adopt this one in order to ensure that whatever kind of reporting you are providing, so you can go ahead with these kind of reportings: compliance based, impact based performance, eco balance approach, and finally environmental burden approach. I'm sure that you guys got the complete clarity as to how to go about while you make or present any of the environmental reporting, what kind of approaches you should take upon. I'll be concluding my video with the last topic of the day, and that will be the format. So format of environmental reporting. What should be the format? This question was asked twice in CA final examination for November 2003 and May 2009. Number 1, what is that one thing that should be with which this particular environmental report would start? So that will be the name and address of the owner or occupier of the industry. Obviously, you need to have this thing as first your cover page: name and address of the occupier of the industry. Number 2, date of last environmental audit report submitted. It is essential, probably that is the only reason as to why it has been included over here. Why? Because environmental audit, unlike this financial audit and stat audit which we do each and every year, so this is not something which usually is being done every year. So you need to have that date on which you last had this environmental report submitted. So that will give you a fair idea as to like how much period has elapsed between these two audit reports. So that is again a kind of concern. Number 3 will be the consumption of water and other raw materials during current and previous year. So how much water has been like consumed, what all other raw materials were consumed, and in how much proportion. So in during last year and current year. That is the number 3. Number 4, pollution generated in air and water along with the output. So this is again some really interesting thing. So you need to have the kind of idea as to what kind of pollutions are generated in air and water along with the output, and the types of pollutants and their deviations from standards. So that is again required to be done. Number 5 will be the generation of hazardous waste in current and previous year. So what all kind of hazardous waste is being generated in current year and previous year from processes, and the disposal practice for different types of waste. It has to be done. And then moving on to this quantity. So what is the quantity of waste which was sold, recycled, reutilized during current and previous year? So this is again an aspect which is required to be presented in the format of environmental reporting. Next will be the practice in operation for conservation of natural resources. So practice of operation for conservation of natural resources. So what all kind of practice is being done or in operation as far as the conservation of natural resources is concerned. And finally, we'll be concluding the same with the additional investment proposal for environmental protection, including the abatement of pollution. So that is something which is being done as something good. So what all additional investment proposals are being made for environmental protection. So with this you can conclude the presentation as well as your format for environmental reporting. The name and address for the owner occupier, date of the last environmental audit report submitted, consumption of water and other raw materials which were submitted and consumed basically during the current and previous year, pollutions which were generated in air and water along with the output, generation of hazardous waste in current and previous year, quantity of waste sold, recycled, reutilized, practice and operation of conservation of natural resources, and finally additional investment proposal for environmental protection. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to all those topics which were covered in this particular presentation. Perfect guys, I'll be concluding my presentation with a dose of motivation, and that will be our belief at the beginning of a doubtful undertaking is the one thing that assures the successful outcome of any venture. With this, I'll say thank you on behalf of the Edupedia world. Keep interacting with our questions, queries and YouTube comment boxes. We love to have your grievances and queries solved. Stay connected. That will help us in understanding your needs way better.